Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Fun Side of Business podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Hampton.
I am the second host, Gemma Addison.
Good morning, Gem.
Good morning, Nick.
Okay, so this guest, the nice part is I've met him, I've spoke to him, but I haven't asked him too much about his intro. And the reason being because this guest is this interesting, we could have him for 2 to 3 hours here today.
Okay, right.
He is someone who I've met by chance, is one of the most inspirational people I've ever spoken to. Without further ado, welcome, Stephen Norris.
Good morning.
Welcome,
Good morning.
Stephen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Stephen, I think for those people who have heard on Gen X and various other radio stations, I think your past has probably been discussed, more than once. So we're going to take you to the point where you left school.
Okay. Yep.
So let's take you from like 17, 18. Where did you go first into work, jobs? How did you get started in your career?
Okay, so like all kids that grow up on a scruffy council estate, you get sort of limiting beliefs, really. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to join the RAF. My friend Mark Garbett also wanted to join the RAF and had supportive parents and joined the RAF and just recently left as squadron leader. And that was the path I wanted. But kids like me don't join the RAF apparently. So eventually, after being told that for about 4 or 5 years, I then went to be a panel beater and sprayer in a garage of all things. So from fighter pilot to bashing metalwork and using toxic paint. That was what I did. And I did that to a level where I got my city and guilds and then thought this can't be everything. And maybe I should go out and sell the paint that we were using. And of course, you need a degree for that. And I hadn't got anything, no GCSEs or no O levels or anything. So that was the end of that. And then somebody who liked me gave me a chance as a sales guy. And the rest, as they say, is sort of history from there.
So who was that for that you started selling for?
I went to work for a company called ATEP, a Belgian company. It was at the time when computers were just taking off people's laptops and people were having typewriters taken off their desks and these computers were being put on with a dot matrix printer, if you can remember them.
Wow.
I remember dot matrix.
I don't remember, so...
No, you're far too young for that. But these dot matrix printers were so noisy and they used to sit on PA's desks and shake their desks to death. And, people were up in arms. You're talking about the Bank of England, HMRC, people like that who are having all this new tech introduced. And so ATEP, this Belgian company, had a printer hood that you used to bring in, put it underneath. It was an acoustic hood. And as you put it underneath and on top, this dot matrix printer just turned silent at that point.
Wow.
So it was the easiest sell in the world because this thing was, literally moving the desks across the office.
See, I remember, you'd literally see the cartridge or their printer head go back. And
Correct.
As it went across.
Yeah. All of that sort of noise. And you can imagine, a very quiet office with lots of EAs, PAs in there sort of trying to work and it was bedlam. And then so you'd put one of these on and then of course the one EA would look at the other and say, well, why haven't I got one? And so they would have to have one and then someone else would have to have one. So, you take an order for one and then two would become 20 and 20 would become 50. And it was to work
like the UK representative or working in Belgium or...
I was. I was just, I had... So I was UK representative, but I thought probably the first place I should work would be the city. Yeah. And so I just took the city on board and I picked up, Bank of England was one of my first contracts, HMRC, who were based at Southend at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
how old would you have been at this time?
23.
Oh wow, that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big step.
23. What are you can do? Sales. Where to? Bank of England and
HMRC.
Yeah. It was a funny story. I was with the UK boss, the big boss, and we got into an argument in London with another car, and people cut each other up, and they all got out, and they were fisticuffs, that sort of stuff. And I just sat in there as a 23-year-old young salesman. And we get to the Bank of England and they had these lifts that looked like coffins and you used to step into them and they were just on a constant loop and you used to step into this coffin and then you go up and then the next one would come through and then you go up. I mean, it's a total health and safety hazard. But but at the time it worked.
Back in the day where health and safety...
Who cares about that?
Yeah. And we were sat in reception waiting for this guy to come down and the coffin sort of came down and out stepped this guy that he'd been having a row with. May have been struck down. Yeah, you can't make this stuff yourself up. And so he took one look at him and said, well, you can sit there. And he said, I'll take you with me. And I'd been with the company about a fortnight. And he said, who's that? And I said, I was the UK boss. And he said, well, probably not for much longer. And I kind of agreed, really. And so I went off and won this huge contract. So, and they wouldn't deal with him at all. They would only deal with me. So yeah, he did me a favour that day.
And that's also so important as well, because sales is such a big cornerstone of, business. No matter what you're doing, it's like the most transferable skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, getting a great background in that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm guessing, was it the inkjet printers that killed your business, or was it just you decided to move on to something else?
Do you know, there was a job advertised locally for a Danish company called ISS. And yeah, I liked the look of the job and I applied for the job and got it. And it was less travelling and it was a bigger area and much more money. And so the other job was small basic salary, huge commission. And this one was a huge salary and a smaller commission. And I felt that was the best way around. So I did that. And I was in that job that the guy who believed in me at this new job said, if you're any good, I'll make you key account manager in 18 months. And true to his word, he made me key account manager in 18 months because I worked so hard.
So what did ISS do?
ISS is International Service System, and they're in contract cleaning. And
I think I heard of them.
Yeah, an FM, and they're huge. Yeah, massive operation. And so I became key account manager and then became regional sales manager and ultimately became sales manager for that company after 6 years. And that was a brilliant grounding, someone who believed in me and someone who pushed me, which is kind of the theme of what motivates me, really.
So was sales like a natural talent? You just found it easy?
I did, because I've always been curious about people. I think that's really where it comes from. And I think the key to any good sales is to be able to listen. And so when people would say, and teams that I would train say, you don't say very much. And I say, yeah, because we should be listening, really. We're picking up on the things that are important.
I don't really hear that because normally people in sales are so pushy.
Yeah.
Here we go. Just for the tick list. So Jordan Belfort first taught when it was selling a pen, it was don't sell the product, sell the solution.
Yeah.
And how do you sell the solution if you don't listen to hear what the problem is?
You listen to what people need. Yeah,
exactly that. And I don't know that I had any formal sales training. I think it was just my curiosity of people and just listening to their stories. And truthfully, people love to talk about themselves, don't they? And so it's great if you're prepared to listen, then you learn a lot. And that's really where I suppose my curiosity of people came from, really.
Okay, so you've now, in 6 years, near enough conquered ISS.
Yes.
So you've gone from entry level to key account to regional to national.
Yes.
Okay.
The king of sales.
Now the king of sales.
Now the king of sales.
Second. Prince of Sales, Jordan Belfort, still the king.
Yeah,
always.
I agree.
There we go. Everyone in sales will know.
Every show.
Okay. And so what was the next step for you, Stephen?
The next step was Kimberly-Clark, who manufacture Kleenex, as you probably know. They again, by reputation, which was really lovely, came and headhunted me it was really lovely. And they headhunted me to run one of their divisions. And during the interview process, they said, just need to check off what your degree is in. And I said, I said, how about the school of hard knocks? Yeah. And they said, oh, no, you must have a degree. And I said, well, that's a bit of a bugger because I don't. And they said, okay, well, we really want you to work for us. I said, well, then I'd leave that with you then. So to their credit, or to this guy's credit, he somehow managed to get me in. And people would ask me constantly the whole time I was there, so, which university did you go to? What degree do you have? and I said, I don't. And they just laughed and said, of course you do. What are you, you're being modest. You probably have a master's, don't you? And I said, no, I really don't. I said, an MBA? I said, no, I don't have one of those either. But they all used to sort of look. It was like the computer said no. Really odd. And to the day that I left, they were still saying, I bet you have got.
You've got something back there. Yeah.
You're just one of those real, you've got 2 firsts or something, haven't you? And I said, no, I really haven't, But
anyway. Say I've got a University of Phoenix degree on a wall from a dot matrix printer that was quiet.
That's right. That's how
But really, it was just a school of hard knocks.
It was.
And I completed that.
Totally, it was totally that. And so I came in and sort of ran this division for them. And then I had this bright idea that I should start my own company, and that's what happened. That was, I don't know, about 92, I think, then.
Okay,
something like that. Yeah.
So the first business you started,
yes,
what was this one?
This was a thing called the immobiliser. It was a vehicle security product, which was pretty clever. It interrupted the electrical circuits of the car with a little tiny key, and as you left the car, you turned the ignition off and took the key with you, and then of course the electrical circuit in the car was broken.
So isn't it the same as the immobiliser chip we understand today?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much, but a very crude version of it.
Yeah,
and
but it was fairly trailblazing, right? Because immobilisers weren't common in 1990s.
No, they weren't. And at that time, yes, it was quite trailblazing. But it was, it was a bit Heath Robinson as a product. But the insurance companies got hold of it and realised that, Norwich Union, as it was then before it became Aviva, were insuring Golf GTIs, Peugeot 205 GTIs, and all these kind of fast XR3Is, Cosworths and stuff. But they're all getting stolen wholesale.
With a screwdriver?
Yeah, pretty much. And
you seem to know it too well, Nick.
Yeah.
So I heard. Someone told me.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Tennis ball and the screwdriver.
And so she'd motor policies at Lloyd's, conversation with them about, we could insure your risk here. And because underwriter said to me, "You're surely not going to cure vehicle crime with this stupid little product, are you?" And I said, "No, absolutely, I'm not. But what I can do is insure your risk." And so he just said, "That's rather clever, Stephen. Right, talk to Colin. Let's get it sorted out." And he said, "When would you like to start?" I said, "I don't know. When would you like to start?" He said, "Tomorrow." So I said, okay. And the next day I came in and we had one of those answer machines with a cassette in it. And, when the cassette was full, it used to bleep, and it was bleeping. And like, oh God, And
on day one?
On day one. Well, the following day, yeah. And it was, "Hello, Mush. I've got a Golf GTI. I've got to have something fitted, mate, called on my Astra GTE, and all of that.
Immobiliser or something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. When can you have it done? Because I'm not allowed to drive it at the moment." And so, we'd send an engineer out and then he could drive his car. But, the next day was worse. The day after that was worse still. And it just got worse and worse and worse in a positive sense.
Yeah.
And the meteoric rise of the business had started. And so one staff became 5, became 10. It sort of just went crazy, absolutely crazy. And then somebody I knew, a friend of a friend really, introduced me to somebody in Poland, Jan, who'd been the former owner of Hertz Rent-A-Car in Poland, and he was looking for something to do, and he'd heard about this product and wanted to be my distributor for Poland. So we signed an agreement for him to be the distributor for Poland, and we went and saw the insurance company in Poland, and I did the same pitch to him, and I didn't speak a word of Polish, but I could remember him going, "Ah." And I was like, "Oh, the penny's just dropped."
Which is always a good sign.
Yeah, and his hand in the air, and a sort of, you could see him thinking, "That's clever." And so they had a conversation, and then Jan turned to me and said, "Okay, he wants to do it." I said, "Okay, great." He said, I want 10,000 pieces." I said, "Okay, fine." Christ, how the hell am I going to manage that? So I said, "Yeah, great." And he said, "If you could get 10,000 on the way," and then he said, "We'll see how it goes, and then I'll probably put an order in for another 10,000. And, at the time I'd been selling, 1,000 a month.
So you're there smiling, nodding your head.
Yeah, going home and going, "Yeah, I got the order. How many pieces? 10,000. But 10,000.
So how were you doing it at the time? I mean, I'm guessing this wasn't just an easy Chinese import.
Oh, no, it was somebody making the products, and it was sort of 8 components went inside a box, but the box was flat pack. So you kind of open the flat pack box, put in, one of those, one of these, one of them, one of them, one of them. One, and then one of these, 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 one of these. 2.
And they're marking off their little tally chart as they do it.
Pretty much. And so, and they were in boxes of 24. So we go, 1 box of 24. And then you go, one of these, one of these, one of these, one. And then eventually you had 2 boxes. You can imagine I've got to make 10,000 of those on top of everything else that we were doing. And then, meanwhile, Jan spoke to a guy in Norway, yes, called Seiko, and Seiko was on the phone saying, "You need to come to Norway. I want to talk to you.
I will start with 25,000.
I want to talk to you about being your distributor for Scandinavia." And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that."
There are lots of Saabs we need to insure.
Oh my goodness. So and then of course, and truthfully then Seiko spoke to Chilla, and Chilla was a very well connected lady who was Hungarian Canadian, based in Budapest. And after I'd seen Seco and he placed his order, then I went and saw Chiller and she placed it. I mean, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
In a good way.
In a good way,
yeah.
And then I had a small business in Slovakia where we manufactured a product then in Slovakia.
Yeah.
Much cheaper to manufacture, and
and not quite one of them.
One of them, slightly improved on that, and then we could then distribute across Europe with from Slovakia, and so so that was and I've kind of condensed that down into about a 6-year period. At which point someone said, "I think I need to buy that," and made me an offer, and I turned it down, and then made me a significantly better offer, and then I accepted.
Okay,
and that was that.
Well, that's all right, because sometimes you hear people who have that, that meteoric start and then become a victim of their own success because they've expanded too fast and it falls over. But your one seems like it expanded that fast. You kept up with it by probably a lot of
by fingertips, really.
Work.
Yeah, I think it was just fingertips. I had a brilliant accountant and a brilliant lawyer. Yeah. And a brilliant bank manager. Yeah. And every time I got to that bit where I was like, I don't have any cash. I don't really know why haven't I got any cash? And my accountant would sit me down and go, well, it's because you've got all this stock and you've got all these people over here who owe you money. And you go, okay. Yeah, but where's the cash?
But people never realise that. I mean, I know because I invested in a cleaning company. A friend of mine once started a cleaning company and invested in it. And the amount of money that he thought he needed was relatively small at the beginning. And every new contract he get, where you go, now the business is making more profit and more profit. It just needed more and more funds to just keep bankrolling the success.
Yes, exactly.
And no one ever realizes that. They just think, oh, yeah, sign some more orders and your business is great. But actually, as success builds, so does the call for cash.
Yeah, exactly. And at that time, it was back in the crazy banking days when the bank manager would just give you more and more and more. Yeah. And so very gratefully, the bank manager I won't mention, he gave me. I had £500,000 unsecured at that time, which was
definitely
but it was back in the olden days where you'd go, "Are you going to pay this back?" Yeah, all right, it's in your account.
Yeah, pretty much.
Didn't need to sign anything.
No, I didn't. No directors' guarantees or anything. So I had sort of £500,000. He was, but he had an immobiliser on his product, on his car. Of course, he did, and believed massively in the product. And he was a friend of my accountant's, and it was just a happy, jolly time. Yeah. And we were just making money. And I would sit down with him periodically, as the bank manager does, and he would say, "How's it going?" And I'd tell him those kind of stories, and he'd be like, "Great. Need any more money?" And he'd go, "Yeah." And then Steve, my accountant, would say to him, we could do with another 100,000. Yeah, no problem. Put it in your bank account. No problem. So it was just crazy days,
But I think
brilliant
people,
fun.
unless they were in that, never realised that it happened.
No.
I mean, I quite fondly tell the story of like when my mum and stepdad went to buy a house and their earnings and everything else like that, the mortgage broker went, "Yeah, well, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this." And they went, "Oh, hang on a second. If you just say you can pay it back, we could just get the money." And literally it was done by a signature, a handshake, and yes, that's fine, they can afford it, to go, yeah, just have the money, whatever you want for a house.
Brilliant.
But, it's
how
nice
things
that...
have changed, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose there's a lot of irresponsible, but it also made things so much easier. And there was probably a lot more business going on because people knew they could fund it.
Yeah.
Or at least the banks would.
Yeah, the banks would, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so you've now sold this business.
Yep.
You've come out with a nice chunk of change.
Yep.
Okay, what was next? Did you consider, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to enjoy golf? Or?
Do you know what? I wasn't sure what to do next, truthfully, but I was way too young. I was only, I don't even know how old I'd been, 37 or something then. And just wasn't sure what to do. But a friend of a friend had a company that was failing, and so I helped him. And then another friend of a friend had a company that was failing, and I helped him, and realised I was actually quite good at that, that sort of special power of seeing something broken and being able to find out how to align it and get it working again. Yeah. And then somebody that this last guy knew was, private equity backed, and said, "Look, I've got this company that I'm thinking of acquiring, but I want someone to go in and sort it out for me." And so I did that, and then gave it back to him at the time of sale, and I got a share of that. And then I ended up doing that again and again. And then there I was 20 years later, just before COVID, selling the last company, having been given, the last company I was given was losing £200,000 a month at EBITDA. So it's pretty good going. And yeah, so 6 months later, it was making. I mean, it made £1,245, I think, in month 7, something of that order. 1,234, something of that order.
Yeah, but a company that's losing
But that's a
200,000,
huge
making
turnaround.
1,200 quid is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge reversal, but it was just that ability to say, okay, stop. What are we doing here? Why are we so busy?
Yeah.
Losing £200,000 a month. Why don't we just shut for 4 days a week, and we'd lose even less? That might be simple methodology, but just pulling the business apart and seeing it for what it was, and realizing what they were doing that was costing a lot of money, that wasn't actually at net level making them any money, and was the root cause of the problem. So a lot of that, but that's relatively easy to do. And then of course, 1,200 becomes 5,000 EBITDA and 7,500 EBITDA. It takes a little bit of while to scale that back up. But in 6 years, I gave it back to them, and we were making 2.1 at EBITDA. Wow. So it's a 4.5 million reversal in 6 years, and then they sold the business, and I stepped away, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they were really gutted about that. I'll give this business is losing 2.5 mil. We'll give it back and I was just making about 2.1. I didn't want to go full reversal but that would be showing off, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, and that was just before COVID, at which point I said, kind of done.
Yeah.
I think I've done enough now. I'll finish. And then, of course, COVID hit and you couldn't do anything. And I had this feeling that I wanted to give something back to business, but didn't really know what that felt like. And then a friend of mine who was a Vistage member spoke to me about Vistage, and I said, oh, and he said, yeah, I think you could be a Vistage chair. You should be a Vistage chair. You have the business acumen to be able to give something back to the business community. And I just thought, I won't be good enough for that. And I kind of knew one of the Vistage chairs in the local area, very well educated man, someone I admire, and just thought, that's not me. I'm just the snotty kid from the council.
So hang on, let's just get this right, because I need to. I can't let him off the hook for this one. Okay, so you've gone through, right? You've smashed through everything that you've done in job number 1 for the Belgian company.
Yeah,
you've gone through ISS. You've been headhunted by Kimberly-Clark. You've built the business from nothing to a decent exit. You've transformed the life of your friends' businesses, endless other businesses, and now someone says to you, you should give advice on businesses, and you've got imposter syndrome and don't think you can do it.
I'm not sure I'm good enough.
How does that work?
Yeah.
If there's anyone who's ever kind of told the story of going, you don't have to tell that story.
Yeah.
The volume can be turned down and people can just see your history to know you're capable.
Yeah. Isn't it a strange thing? I think, because my start in life was so tough, because nobody ever told me that they loved me, probably until I was up into my 20s, and you grow up with this feeling of no worth. I led a violent life when I was young, and felt on a few occasions that I might die, and came close to death on a few occasions. And I suppose I've also committed suicide, or tried to take my life, whatever the politically correct term is for that. But when you've done those things, your self-worth is low. And the reason I think I've worked as hard as I have through my life is because I wanted to be noticed, because I wanted people to take notice of this kind of lost kid. And so every single time I've been headhunted by anybody or given something to do, I've kind of gone, God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm good enough to do this.
That little voice? Child
just
voice.
sits on your shoulder the whole time saying, yeah, but you're not this guy. You're the guy who wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Did it almost feel like, and I told you so, when you went to Kimberly-Clark and they said, where's your degree? And you kind of went, oh, yeah, see, I knew I wasn't good enough. I'm out the door again. Yeah,
and I did fear that someone above the guy who brought me in would actually say, look, I'm really sorry, Stephen, you don't have a degree, and we can't have anybody in our business that doesn't have a degree, so we're going to have to ask you to leave.
Yeah.
And I got through countless interviews during my time, having condensed this conversation down. There was another company, a worldwide brand that you would know, who got me to sales director, wanted me to be their sales director, and literally at the last minute said, oh, we can't find your degree on here. And I said, it's because I don't have one. They said, oh, I'm terribly sorry, we can't offer you the job. And that was the end of that.
But this is, I appreciate you don't want to mention them. I really want to, even though I'm not going to ask you to, just to kind of give them look at what this guy is capable of, and look at what you missed out on by being stuck up with your, we must have that to tick
But
a
it
box.
was back then, whatever. I mean, even as young kids, you ran around with we mentioned it before on the show. What are them little red folders we
NRAs.
had? NRAs.
Yeah.
No one
cares.
It's pretty much your personality, what have you done, your experience. Back then, certificates mattered.
Yeah.
Even though do you know what I mean? It's yeah.
Okay, so you touched on this. Tell us about Vistage. And by the way, we never really have people coming in and plug their business.
Sure.
But for me, it's just fascinating to go, what's the role that Stephen thought he couldn't do? Because I kind of feel like you literally are like Superman to do anything.
His little face right now.
Yes. Oh my God! If only my wife will hear this and say, "Yeah, you are not Superman." I think the role itself is being the leader of leaders.
Yeah.
So even just to say that out loud feels odd, because if I look at the chief execs that I look after, these are all seasoned chief execs running their own companies, building their own businesses, managing partner of law firms, managing partners of accountancy firms. These are people that have been around the block, but they might be great leaders or indeed great lawyers or great accountants, but actually running a business is something entirely different. And there's some idiosyncrasies that thread through any company of the way you get the very best out of your people, the right culture that you need within your people, and how you recruit people and how you empower people. And I don't think that's something, I think that everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the imposter in me thinking, well, surely it's not, everyone knows this. And I sit across from managing partners who say to me, like, I'm so indebted to you for the support you give, because this is something I don't know. And I just think that's crazy. Surely you know this, but they just don't. And so realizing that's, I suppose, my small superpower, to be able to say, well, there's a common thread in all these companies that I've fixed and all these companies that I've built, and it's been about the people. And I've never wanted to be the smartest guy in the room and the best educated, and I know I'm not. What I want are the very, very best people in the room with me, and I want them to run the company. I just want to be the guy that's got the helicopter view, and I've always maintained that helicopter view. I've never, ever wanted to do anything that anybody else can do then they should.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be doing anything. I want to give us the vision for where the business is going. And so when you get a managing partner or a managing director or a chief exec of a company saying, yeah, I can't really see where I'm going. And you say, well, where do you want to go? And they say, well, my vision is 5 years from now, I want to be doing X. And they go, okay, great. Let's just put the roadmap in here to get you to that point. Now, that feels obvious to me, but I suppose when you're terribly blinkered by the day-to-day of what you're doing.
I was just going to say, if you're in the job and you're dealing with the day-to-day troubles.
Exactly that.
But yeah.
Yeah. So it's just easy for me to take that holistic view, the helicopter view, and look down and say, I can kind of see what's wrong here. Let me help you fix that. So from a coaching and mentoring point of view, I suppose it sits well within my sweet spot of what I'm good at. And so that's really what the role is. It's just, realizing that even though these people are incredible people in their own right, when you bring them together and they share that experience of the way that they run their company and he runs his company and she runs her company, and then we see me as the leader of leaders to actually help them and guide them to doing something even better, perhaps something they hadn't envisaged that they might do with their time in leadership. It's incredibly rewarding.
I'll say one thing that's really apparent, and I know we've touched on about your past and it wasn't great. It's crazy to me how right now you can see that your love for people.
Yeah.
You like to help people.
Bless you, yeah.
And I feel like it's because maybe you didn't get that.
Yeah.
And now you can just see it. Yeah. Like you just love to help people. And that really shines through.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
I if anybody ever pays you a compliment, my natural go-to would be, and
yeah.
But I've learned in the last few years to say thank you. That's kind of you, because that's not a vocabulary that's in my language. Not really, not at all. But one of the chief execs that I'd really helped and I'd actually helped to sell her company, when she said to me, like, I can't thank you enough. And I said, it was nothing. And she said, right, stop. And she put her arm on my arm and said, enough. Don't do that again.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a compliment. Please own the compliment, because it's rude for you to say, oh, it's nothing, because for me, it's everything.
It's everything, yeah.
And I said, wow, I hadn't thought about it like that. And so from that point forward, I've actually tried to own, if somebody says, I really appreciate what you've done, or I can see that you love what you do and I can see that you like people. I've realised over time that when people talk about their why, why do you do what you do? That my why is very simple. It's that, I'm at my happiest and I'm at my best when I'm helping others.
Yeah.
And it's that. And what comes of that is, some reward, financial reward, some personal reward, the way I feel about what I'm doing for people. And I do a lot of pro bono stuff for people. There's an awful lot of sort of reciprocity in what I do, I think, now, helping people in the region, because I care about, this region. I care about the people who work in this region and the people who are trying to do good. So to be part of that movement feels very special.
Yeah,
so,
well, it shows. It definitely
Thank
shows.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, do you know what? I'm going to round this even further.
Okay.
We've had the expression headhunted.
Yeah.
We've had the expression Superman. I think we've got it. We've had leader of leaders.
We're not sure if that's wife approved yet.
Right?
But...
Absolutely not wife approved.
We've got leader of leaders.
Yeah.
Now, how about this one? How about author and musician? Just in case he couldn't do enough. Okay, come on, Stephen. We round off, because everything that we do is everyone will know, or people will know of Stephen Norris now.
Yes.
Stephen Norris, maybe a little bit of history, but probably doesn't know your journey to where you are.
Yes.
But not many people know Stephen Norris, the musician, do they?
They don't. That's true. No,
I don't even know this, so I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I kept that I used to keep that very, very quiet. Well, when I left school at 16, my friend Steve and I had been to watch a couple of punk bands at that time. And the DIY nature of that made us think, you know what, we could do that. So I got a guitar, Steve got an amplifier, and we plugged it in and he shouted and I played.
So professional.
Yeah, it was great. And then we got a couple of other like-minded fools to come and join us.
Please tell me it was like someone got a bucket, tipped it upside down and banged it, right?
Do you know what? It was literally, it was like a child's set, you know, that kind of thing.
Just an image of these four young guys in a garage just all shouting.
That's exactly what it was. Honestly, it was literally that. We used to lock ourselves in a garage and we used to just make row. And, I was learning to play the guitar and it wasn't pretty. And Steve used to yell so much that he'd sing himself hoarse. And so, the next day at work, he couldn't speak and stuff like that. But eventually what we decided to do when we became proficient at one song, we thought what we'll do is we'll go down to the precinct in Colchester, Culver precinct in Colchester, and we'll get underneath the precinct and we'll plug ourselves into some power and tell everybody there's a punk gig going on.
Yeah.
And so we did that. So we flyed everybody and we walked around the town and we walked around other towns and we flyed everybody and anybody who looked slightly alternative. And then we got underneath Culver precinct, plugged ourselves into Marks and Spencer's power under the precinct, and as you do, and then just played some songs, and all these punks turned up, and then the manager from Marks and Spencer's sort of midway through our first song came down, opened up the door. I mean, Jesus Christ! And all these people pogoing about in the loading bay of the Culver precinct in Colchester, and anyway, the police were called. And we all got sort of escorted away.
But that's really rock and roll. Come on, if you want to be,
it's totally rock and roll.
It was so punk, right?
Yeah, it's totally punk. And then then we got an audience with the Colchester Council because there was no places to play, and then we brought out our probably one of our most notorious songs is a song entitled Colchester Council, and the chorus is Colchester Council full of shit. And
I'm sure they were obviously pleased to hear.
Oh, they were really. But we have friends who work in Colchester Council, and if anybody's listening that works in Colchester Council, they can verify this, because people apparently in the Colchester Council who've never heard of Special Duties, by the way, just everyone will say Colchester Council, and someone over the corner will go full of shit, and it's become a sort of an office thing, which is hilarious. Yeah, it's really funny. So anyway, so we we wrote that song in about 1979, and we're still playing it now because everybody loves it, you know.
And so you've gone from that.
Yeah.
What's been the highlight? I mean, because I know when we spoke, you said like you've been to LA.
Yes.
Where else have you been around the world?
Yeah, so I've been all the way across the States, toured across the States, been right the way across Europe, I'd say. I mean, you know, I don't know that we've played all the usual suspects, you know, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, you know, all of that.
As you do.
How you just said
By
that?
the way, as you do, as well as
doing all of that.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, you know, just the regulars,
As well as
you know,
being the
Germany,
king of
Italy,
sales,
France,
taking over.
across America, yeah, as you do.
Oh dear,
It was just a little bit on the side.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's amazing.
It's a part-time job. But yeah, so yeah, those have been real highlights, you know, kind of under the radar stuff.
Oh, I love that.
And you've got a book coming out?
I have, yeah. I've just finished it. I'm writing a book about my life, and I got a little bit stuck with it. I managed to do the 0 to 7, 7 to 10, and 10 to 12, which is where most of the horror was. And then I got a little bit stuck with the enormity of it, I think, knowing that I got quite a few years and 1,000 stories to fit in. So I got a bit stuck with it. Along the way, I was telling a friend was asking me about, you know, what's the latest business book you've read, you know? And if you know anything about me, you know, I sort of cringe for that because a lot of that is, some of it's great, but a lot of it's a lot of tosh.
Yeah.
And don't like some of the authors and the way that they write. And I think that, you know, a 400-page book, you know, you've got it after 100 pages, but they still then bash you over the head for the next 300. I just don't like that. So I had, over a beer, was talking to a friend about it, and I said, I've got this great idea for a business book. And anyway, we laughed about it for about an hour, and then afterwards he said, right, there's your challenge, get it written. And I was like, oh God. And it's a book which has got a working title of the Punk Rock Playbook for Business Misfits.
Okay.
Wow.
And it draws on what I've learned from being in a punk rock band about that sort of, if you want to start a movement, plug yourself into Marks and Spencer's power and just get it done. And everything I've learned like that, you know, if you want to play in the States, well, you just want to go and do it. Let's just find a way of doing it, you know. And so, you know, there we were in the States going, well, we've done that then. And then you get a booking agent, you know, who wants to work with you in the States. And so, you know, you sort of go from there. But yeah, I think the crossover between punk rock and business, I think there's a lot to be learned between the two.
I think when you go and see, you know, so many different things, you know, can apply to what they are. And I think when you look at, you know, everything about your history, if there's ever one thing to take away, it's a case of it doesn't matter what's going on. If you want to go and do something, you know, without getting sued by Nike, just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get out there and achieve what you want to achieve and make things happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, I think in my industry, I see so many people sit in front of me and going, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a business. And it's like, so set it up then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I want to do first is I just need to get this website done. It's like, your website will never be done. As much as you think you're going to do it, and then once you've got it, you're going to go, oh, I just need to add a contact form. I'm just going to put a plugin in. I'm just going to do this. And then I just need to I'm just going to get my logo redesigned. I'm just waiting for the business cards. And you go, just go and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to start something, if you want to go out and achieve, you know, the fastest lesson, but I've just read this business book and I want to read this other one. And you think, no, just go out and achieve what you want to do. Yeah. And the best lesson anyone can have in business is go and do it, fail, learn from it.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah. No, and 100%, I 100% agree with that. And I think anything, when I was writing the book and I thought about how we achieved what we've achieved with the band, it's just been that attitude of like, why not?
Yeah.
Come on, let's just, well, we could sit and put a business plan together and we could spend the next 3 months thinking about it, or we could just lift the phone and we could just get on with it. We could just do it. And that's exactly what we did. And I thought, as I was having this conversation with a friend, he said, that's the sort of the idea behind the book. When we laughed about it, he said, there's nothing out there like that, Stephen. You need to write that. And so I've written it. So I've just finished, last week, in fact, I finished the manuscript. I've been back and I've reread it and I've edited it. But now I need somebody to professionally edit it and just to make sure that I haven't waffled and I haven't repeated myself.
Because you want to make it authentically you, and
Yeah.
not be this like waffly 400-page that can be done on.
No. And I think it's about 58,000 words. It's about the same size as Simon Sinek's Why book.
Yeah.
So I think that was, okay, that's interesting. That's a benchmark. If he's got that book and that's about that size, this will be fine. I don't know what I had a framework for it. I'd written down the framework. It just flowed out of my head. Sometimes they do. And this thing came out of my head quite quickly. And so when I wrote it and then I typed it and just added it up, I suddenly got to about 58,000 words or something. I was like, oh, okay, great. That looks like a book size. I just need somebody to professionally edit it for me now and read it and make sure it's grammatically strong. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there.
There we go. So I think we can now do the outro as the intro. Stephen Norris, survivor, salesman, entrepreneur, beyond entrepreneurs, successful start and sell a business, Superman, even though I've got it, leader of leaders, punk rocker, author. Finally, Stephen Norris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So amazing to meet you, Stephen.
Pleasure. Thank you.